Some VR impressions from me, I guess, because playing more VR stuff for the first time. But yeah, Half-Life Alyx. So, placed between the events of the groundbreaking games Half-Life and Half-Life 2, does Half-Life Alyx live up to the series' incredibly lofty
Yes.
reputation? Released last year in 2020 after 4 years of development. Very small team for a AAA game, relatively 80 people. As Valve has always had very small teams. And some of the folks from Firewatch, after they bought that studio, developed this game.
Is it Campo Santo?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
But they're just like Valve now.
Yeah.
And really like the sort of ambition of Half-Life Alyx is to be a VR game, first-person shooter that takes full advantage and is very native VR. So how do you have experiences in VR that can't be replicated via any other games? And I mean, first off the bat, and then I'll hand over to you, Mike, like this game, I think it's nuts when I see now playing the game, when people are trying to mod it so they can play it without VR. It's, to me, completely missing the point of the game.
Yeah.
And the reason why I wanted to cover this, even though I probably won't I don't think we'll do a review on it down the track, but just like impressions, and I don't think the game's going to drop in quality or anything like that. I know some of the puzzles get frustrating for people, but it really triggered me when you actually said something in our chat, like our offline chat, Swinny, around that feeling you had when you played Ocarina of Time for the first time and games like that. And for me, Super Mario Brothers 3, Doom, Ocarina of Time, and maybe this game. They're like the 4 games for me.
Yeah,
like this game,
yeah.
When I played this game and started like getting into it, and I've played maybe a quarter of the game, this game was like, I had a smile on my face, man. I was like, holy shit, this game is like incredible. It's not perfect, but I'd give it a 10 out of 10 straight away.
Yeah, same.
It's just so phenomenal, man. Like it's, you have to experience this game. Like this is just purely a game that if you're a gamer and you play games, you have to play this game at some stage. It's insane what they've done with this. It's a landmark game. And to me, it really actually does put the Game Awards in a massively negative light to me. How this game, out of the 6 games, could not be considered Game of the Year is insane. It doesn't make any sense. I understand it if you're a small outlet, you don't have VR, you're blah, blah, blah. But if you're trying to represent the games industry, it's just insane that this game is not one of the 6. Like, you can never mount an argument in my mind that this game is less worthy than Doom Eternal. Just picking a game, but
no, totally not. I think
it's
Reach is the only thing I can think of why it wouldn't, because
not
everyone has a VR headset. But I agree, it shouldn't be the way. To me, this was the most revolutionary game experience I've played in a long, long time.
Yeah.
I think the way you equated it to what it felt like the first time I played Doom is exactly this. It's a whole new different thing. I actually honestly don't even have words to describe how amazing that experience was. The only difference is I didn't have a smile on my face playing it because I was too freaking scared. It was the opposite of a smile. No, just kidding. I actually did have a smile on my face as well. It's mind-blowing, and it's the first VR experience I've had that didn't actually feel anywhere near like a tech demo. It actually felt like a proper game, a proper title that to me feels like it's the ushering in of a whole new era of gaming. It's the gateway, the proper first gateway into a whole new VR experience that I think we'll get as gamers. It's incredible. And I don't know how you want to go about this, but so many elements about it are just so cool. So everything from the tactile feel of what you do. So, we've seen this before. I think a lot of people have seen it, even if they haven't played the game. At the very, very start of the game, you can pick up a marker and you can draw on.
Yeah, I did that.
I did that for ages. I spent, like probably 20 minutes plus just sitting there doodling, rubbing it off. And just that experience was amazing. And then little things like I picked up a box of matches with my left hand, and I had my gun in my right hand, and I balanced the box of matches on the gun. And it stayed there until I tipped it over. Yeah. And then I tried the same thing. I picked it up and I flung it up in the air, and the box of matches went flying into the air and then dropped to the ground. That is insane. The fact that you can do that is something you cannot experience with almost any other game. It just blew me away. And what else blew me away is the little details. I picked up a a graphics card, and it was really cool because obviously the whole sort of world in Half-Life is set in what I would say is like a 2000s era Eastern Europe kind of thing. So everything's stuck in that time where you have the old CRT monitors, but with cool new technology intertwined. And I remember I picked up a graphics card and I was just moving it around in my hand, and the way it reflected light of the metal in the room that I was in looked photorealistic. It was the first
Do you
time
mean
when
a
I went.
graphics card, or do you mean like a disc?
No, it was an actual graphics card. So it was
in the
like
game,
I found a box in the game. I found
Yeah.
a box of just graphics cards,
Okay.
and I picked one. It had the VGA output on it in
okay.
blue, or the equivalent of a VGA. I think it actually kind of was a VGA. And just the way the metal and the plastic surfaces, and that happened again when I picked up a clipboard and I was I was next to a monitor, and it would reflect the materials so accurately, and it had a bit of sticky tape and a couple of parts on the back of the clipboard, and just the way the materials reflected was insane. I mean, it's not, super photorealistic as the whole game, but little elements like that were just the immersion in this game is second to none. Everyone, if you can get your hands on a VR headset, if you can borrow it from someone, you need to experience this. It's insane.
And we spoke about it earlier, so with PSVR 2, and I'm really excited about PSVR 2. And I hope and pray, and Valve has done it in the past. The problem is they don't have any economic incentive to do it, but I really hope and pray that they re-release this game on PS, like PlayStation, as part of like a launch for PSVR 2. Because this game, I just fear that it's just not going to be played by people. And I feel like this game is going to go down as just like an absolute cult classic.
Oh, yeah.
That not necessarily was reviewed badly, but it's just an availability thing.
If I was Sony and I'm like, planning out the launch of the next PSVR, like that is like my number one priority.
Oh,
honestly.
same.
Yep.
Like having known, because I think they paid $2 to $3 million to get Resident Evil 7 to be an exclusive. I honestly think this game has such an impact that it would probably economically make sense for them to go, Valve, here's $10 million to make this a console exclusive for PSVR. Because I think this game, if it went on something like PSVR, which is the market leader for VR, people hate hearing that, but it's true. And you can't, argue with facts with that. It would change people's mind a bit, but I think this is where we differ, Mike. I still view, and people are going to come at me, whatever. I feel VR is a gimmick. VR is, to me, more gimmicky than motion controls is.
Okay.
Like for me, VR is a pain in the ass to set up. It's not seamless. Even with the Quest, you're like drawing out, where your play area is. There's just
We'll talk
so
about that in a
many
second.
things
There's
to
a lot
do.
of things to do.
There's funny things that break immersion. So one thing that happened, and I was saying that yesterday I got to play this for ages, that my dogs went nuts, and I think someone was at the door, or, maybe someone's trying to break into my house. And I was kind of like laughing to think that, imagine if you're like invading my house to rob it, and then you open the door and there's some dude like with a headset on. And I was just like, I was thinking it'd be so funny if I got like bashed or got into a fight.
Hilarious.
And I'm in the VR unit.
Man,
Like,
I had the same problem. I was sitting there, totally immersed in the game, and all of a sudden my girlfriend walks past and just pulls my pants down, underwear included. She just left me like that.
oh my God. You've met someone who has your exact same sense of humor.
I did. I'm very lucky.
But yeah, like, look, and I do not want that to take away from this. The way I would equate it is I really feel like, some of the great, like Daytona USA in the arcades. I love that game so much. It's very popular in Australia, more so than anywhere else in the world. Not sure why, but like that is a game you have to play at the arcade. You have to have the feel of the arcade. You have to have people watching you, putting pressure on you from seeing you actually, playing the game. And then, the really great setups that you've had in Australia, sometimes you have like 8 cars that are all linked together. Like that is something you just can't replicate like at home. And I look at it kind of like this, where VR is to me very gimmicky.
But
I wouldn't play it all the time, but it's such an experience. And I don't say this lightly. For me, I can't even think of a year. I'd really struggle actually. Like if this was game of some other year, 2011. If this game was in 2011, I would say this game of the year.
Oh yeah, same.
Right?
Yeah.
And if this came out in the same year as Breath of the Wild, I'd say this is game of the year.
Yep.
And that's where for me, and I, just context for people who don't know, like I love Breath of the Wild, collected all the Korok seeds, which is nuts. Like I love that game with such a passion. And this game is just like, wow, it blew me away so much. Like it was like genuinely a new experience with gaming.
But it's a whole new experience.
But what about Breath of the Wild's VR features?
I don't know if it'd be the same. I think a first person is what makes this what it is. It's the immersion in it.
If you don't know, Breath of the Wild got VR Labo mode.
Yeah, you can play. You can
I
play
did
all
not
of
know
Breath
that.
of the Wild
Wow,
in
that's
VR.
pretty cool.
You can
Okay.
actually play the whole game in VR.
Can you play the whole thing?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Can I just
If you
quickly?
want to get so sick, because that's the bit that I want to touch on just quickly, Mike. That
Yep.
I had so much nausea because I did play it for like an hour or two. I had so much nausea after this.
Wow.
I didn't like throw up or I wasn't like dizzy or anything, but I just felt off for all of yesterday, like after playing this.
Fascinating. Huh.
And I've played VR a bit recently.
And you don't have because just to quickly touch on that, I have full controls unlocked. So I use the left stick to move around, and I have the right stick to kind of move my body, so to speak, which I think is even worse when it comes to.
It is. That's what they say.
But I had no problems with it. I actually had. Do you stand up or were you sitting down?
No, I stand up.
Yeah, same. I stood up. Like if you sit down, then it makes it way worse, I think.
Yeah.
But standing up, I had no problems with that. There were a couple of small instances where I'm like, whoa, that's a bit trippy.
But how long are you playing it for?
Look, I only probably play about 30 to 45 minutes.
That's what I did the first time. So I played it for 30 minutes the first time, and I never feel sick when I'm playing the games. And afterwards, it was like 5 minutes after playing it for 30 minutes. 5 minutes, I felt a bit off. It was like almost like, whoa, I'm getting back into the real world. And I was fine. But then yesterday, I think it's because I played it just way too long. Like it was like an hour and a half or 2 hours or something. And I was like, whoa, I feel like off. Like not quite like a hangover or something like that. Just, it just, when you're not right. And I just was like, whoa, I don't feel right now. Like I feel very funny.
Indigo, I've got a very important question.
Yes.
That's always going to be super important when I say that.
Oh, of course, yeah.
How does this experience and Half-Life Alyx compare to the VR machines at Fun City in Sunshine?
Obviously, nothing
I keep
compared
thinking
to
about that. That's so funny you said that. Like I was thinking about that when I was playing VR and just thinking about VR in general.
The investment that poor place put into these old 90s VR machines that just sat there and no one used them, and you just look at it as we're playing pool and just thinking, man, they lost.
Oh, they would have lost such a dumb idea. Yeah, it was not the right time to do it.
That's when people were suffering. So yeah, there's this. It's like a whole entertainment center, right? Because there's like lots of different things there, go karting and a bar and all that kind of stuff. But Swinny and I would play pool religiously, like billiards or whatever you call it, other places in the world. But we also would play like Led Zeppelin Stairway to Heaven and pay for it to go on loop like 20 times or 15 times. And then like 3 or 4 times in, people were starting to lose it. Like, what the F? Like, someone's playing this song again? What the fuck? Who did this? And we're like trying to like keep it straight because we're like, holy shit, we're going to get bashed or something. Because there's a lot of interesting characters where we grew up. But a huge part of the floor space was taken up by this VR game that I think I saw one person play ever. How many times did you see people play it, Swinny? I saw it once. I think
I saw it once, but
that must have been with you
because it had. I think it had 2 units, or was it 1?
Yeah, it's 2 units.
2 units, but in this
huge
massive,
amount of space,
separate room with a glass.
And so expensive,
thing.
right?
Oh my god!
It was like $25 or something like that. It was just crazy.
Wow.
And the graphics were horrendous
By today's standards,
even for those standards. No. Even back then, it was like horrible.
Yeah, they were like worse than N64 graphics.
Yeah, way worse.
Wow,
it was crazy.
So this brings me to a point I wanted to make this entire time. So you say that it's a gimmick. I say you're saying the equivalent of people back in the day saying Pong is a gimmick. What we're experiencing right now, especially with games like Half-Life Alyx, is the absolute start of the whole VR revolution.
Okay,
it's going to become insane one day.
Let me articulate it, right? VR in its current format, which is putting a display in front of my eyes, is a gimmick. And it's never going to be anything bigger, right? I'll go on the record. I'm more than happy to
go on the
that.
record. Go on the record. You sound exactly like the people that probably dissed Pong back in the day.
Sure, but I mean, if you think about the form of Pong, having a controller where you control something on a screen, that became successful in that format, right?
What, you're saying that
VR
VR won't become
will not-
successful in the format of having a
Correct.
headset on your head?
Now,
Okay.
in the idea that they are able to somehow hack or tap into your visual cortex, so then it's just like a little diode or something that you stick to the side of your head, and the visual acuity is like similar to the real world, right? If they did something like that, I 100% think that people would get addicted to it and like would disappear from the real world.
Okay. I'm keen to see what happens in 10 years.
The form, well,
the world proves you wrong.
Okay, in just context, we've known each other for like 20 something years.
Yep.
Every 5 years, you're like, VR is
very
going to be the biggest
intimately.
biggest thing in 5 years' time. And every 5 years, you're like, oh, give it another 10 years. It keeps on expanding the time for when it's going to take off.
I don't remember what my prediction was last time and when it was.
It was like 10 years ago. You said if 5 years
Yeah,
time,
look,
it's
I'm
going to
not.
be massive.
I couldn't predict certain things that would hold it back, like COVID,
Sure.
as an example. I use that as an
COVID.
excuse. But I do.
Mike is every game developer ever.
But I do agree with you. I think there are, again, certain roadblocks that make it much less accessible than picking up a controller and just using a simple controller. But at the same time, I think it's still in its infancy. It still has a ton of improvements, even in the way it's structured and presented at the moment, that, yes, are a barrier. And I'm talking about the wires, I'm talking about the resolution, I'm talking about a whole bunch of things that once that gets sorted out, everything becomes wireless. It's just you plump it on your head. It's all self-contained. You don't even need to put a cable or install something on your PC or go through that headache, which I spent an hour trying to get it just set up.
My God,
Once you resolve all of that,
pain in the ass.
which you will resolve all of that,
Sure.
I think it's going to be the same as if you look at the evolution of a mobile phone. When,
No, don't say that, because the mobile
I think
phone
it
may
is.
be the most popular product of all time. That's getting silly.
It's getting
Gaming is still
sorry. I'm not
relatively
saying
niche.
hang on. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's going to be as popular as a mobile phone. I'm saying it's going to be the same way a device like the mobile phone evolved from this archaic 3 colors monochrome with buttons and a tiny little screen that size to, holy moly, I can, play the latest AAA titles on it kind of device.
Yeah.
I think it's the same as VR. What we're seeing now is the infancy. It's still super early on in the life of VR, that I think there's massive room for improvements and innovation in that space, and I think it will happen.
Well, I agree with you there. I think you're at stage 0 with VR, right?
Well,
It's not even-
stage 1, let's say.
it's not even
'cause
stage
I think,
1,
well,
but-
I think it's stage 1. I think
Okay,
it's
well,
like
whatever.
I think it's the equivalent. Honestly, I think it's the equivalent of the gaming industry's NES era, probably.
Yeah.
To
So
me,
my perspective-
PSVR, the fact that exists, then we're at stage 1 because it's
Sure.
at
I
least
don't like-
reached that level.
Look,
Yeah,
whatever.
it's NES era for me.
I'm just being cute with saying stage 0. Look, like, for me, like I said, in its current format, which is a display in front of my eyes, it will never take off. It will never become anything other than a tiny little niche like it is right now, which is, not even 5% of gamers use VR consistently and play VR, right? I love that Valve has made this game. So just getting back to Alyx, like,
Yeah.
with that context, I'm not a big lover of VR. Like, I think it's amazing tech, but 95% of the people that I know that love VR don't play VR. You included, Mike, right? So it's like,
Because of the barriers.
but that's
is what I
always going to be
said.
the barriers with the
Well,
form.
that's what I mean. I don't think it necessarily is. If the wires are gone, if the headset is
But you have that with the
standalone,
Quest. You have that with the Quest.
yeah, but Alyx doesn't exist on the Quest. A lot of the games on
you
the
can
Quest,
connect to the Quest wirelessly.
they do, but they haven't ironed out all the issues. You
Oh,
need
no,
really
if
good
you-
Wi-Fi. There's some. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah.
I've
If you
read
get-
about. I was gonna do it, and then I looked it up. I read about it, and I'm like, well, I don't really have the right
Sure,
environment
sure,
to do it properly. So I'm like, forget about it. Try it again in 5 years. I just think there's a lot of barriers that are preventing people from being able to do that. Now, does that mean that I will, exclusively go into VR? Or no, it absolutely doesn't. But I think once the catalog of games increases, and once they're available either wirelessly or without having to download separately with my PC, like everything's integrated in the headset, and it's powerful enough to, power games like Alyx in the headset itself, then I think it's going to start becoming, at least for me, a bit of okay, well, I think I will dedicate a lot more percentage of my time to gaming in VR games than I would to PC. And yeah, at the moment, absolutely. It's like 95 to 5 maybe. But I could see myself, 5 years down the track, if some of those things have improved, or it's almost 50-50.
Yeah. Well, I'm keen to move away from just the VR chat in general. Like,
Yeah.
just like final thoughts on Alyx. Like, I'll go first and then hand over to you. But
Yeah.
and Swinny, like, you're like the guinea pig because you haven't played much VR, or definitely not Alyx.
I've never used VR in my life.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Like,
I want to try. It's not
immersion isn't even the right word, right? Because like people talk about immersive gameplay, immersive games, Last of Us, stuff like that. I feel like you can't even use that word compared to using it in the context of a game like Half-Life Alyx. Like for me, the level of feeling of like, and the amount of aha moments I had where I was like, wait a second, like I got to treat like this is like the real world. Like I got to grab this crate and move it in front of the window and do this stuff. And I don't want to give spoilers, but like stuff where I'm like, fuck, I've got to actually like treat this like I'm playing in the real world, like real life. And it's like, solving it through real means rather than like, oh, this is a game. Like it actually started to feel like less of a game than an experience and something different, right? Like, and I think that's the key point I just want to land. Like you have to play this game. Like, if you're a gamer and you're into games, just try to find a way. Like I would love if, VR units are more freely accessible from like a rental point of view. Like it would have been awesome back in the 90s. I mean, pretty nasty in some ways, but it's just such a cool game. It's so worthwhile playing. I really hope it comes to PSVR 2. I think that would be an amazing launch for PSVR 2 if they had Half-Life Alyx as a bundle. Like I must admit, I'll probably just grab it again.
Yeah, I would. I absolutely would too. Yeah.
For me, like I'm very tight when it comes to games and buying games and sales and all that kind of stuff. And I think I bought this even though it was on sale for like, I don't know, 60, 70 Australian dollars. It is like worth every dollar from an experience point of view. It is so cool. It's just amazing. So yeah, Mike, like final thoughts on Half-Life Alyx?
Absolutely echoes those thoughts. Looking back at my life, and that's the interesting thing about human psychology.
Wow, that broadened out.
Well, no, it does. Thoughts. It did actually. My final thoughts. Let me tell you about the existential crisis I'm currently going through. So if you look at the interesting thing about human psychology is that you can only experience a certain thing once. You only have one chance at experiencing a certain thing and seeing it that way. Because every single other experience beyond that point with that thing is not going to be the same. And I think that if I look back at Doom, when I first experienced Doom, it was like that. It's like, whoa, this is different. It's a whole new different experience that I remember having as a kid. If I look back at, the first time I had sex, totally different experience. Like you can't, it was new. And after that, it's just an iteration of it, but it's not the same thing. And I think Alyx was the same to me. So yes, maybe I am equating Alyx to the first time I had sex. It's a whole new experience that I did not feel with any other game in recent memory. And if you can get your hands on a VR headset, if you can borrow one from a friend, I borrowed mine currently. You were borrowing yours. Totally worth it. When I get my own one, hopefully it'll arrive soon. You can borrow mine as well, Swinny. You have to experience this thing.
You heard it here first. Half-Life Alyx, better than sex.
Yes.
It's dead serious question, Mike. Did you think playing Half-Life Alyx was better than the first time you lost your virginity? Well, not, like when you lost your virginity.
Look, without getting into too many details, it wasn't the...
Just yes or no, yes or no.
Yes, it was better because it wasn't the best experience.
This explains the pants down VR now.
Well, I can see the link to that as well.
Yeah, that was a full immersive
Maybe
experience.
that was a very immersive experience. I'm like, wow, that head crab is really doing its thing.
Man.
All jokes aside, it is absolutely a must thing to experience.
It's a masterpiece.
You can somehow get your hands on it.
It's a masterpiece.
It is.
It's, I really like the Criterion collection. So that's a collection of, very remarkable movies. It doesn't always have to be the greatest movies, but just meaningful movies, not trash. And I think if they started a Criterion collection for games, this game could definitely be the first one. Like that's kind of where I rate it. It's just such a landmark masterpiece game, 10 out of 10. It's really, hey, put this in the 10 out of 10 category and use it as a definition of what that should mean.
Yes.
As a 10 out of 10. So.
And a lot of people might hate me when I say this, but to me personally, this is Half-Life 3.
I'm on the same track as you, dude. Like, if they called it Half-Life 3, I know that it doesn't make sense from a timing.
Well, that's why people want Half-Life 3.
Half-Life 0.5?
But if this was Half-Life 3 and it was like a continuation, and I feel like they kind of chickened out on doing that. But if they did, I would have said that's perfect. Like, and people would have hated it, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. It's amazing. It's such an amazing game.
Yeah, it's not a side thing. It's not like a DLC. It's not a little mini game that was an offshoot on a mobile phone or something to add to the story. It's its own proper standalone Half-Life game that is mind-blowing.
Yeah, and then going back to the opener and the question, like, does it live up to the legacy of the series? In our new editorial policies, fuck yeah, it does. It does live up to it, and it's like just as good as those games. All right, we need to keep it onto the Valve fanboy podcast, as we're going to also cover Portal 2. So Portal 2, this is more like